Boom. And just like that, we're underway. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Agent Power Huddle, and specifically, welcome to Scripting Fridays. I'm Ed Laine. I'm with EXP, and I'm here in Seattle, if you can see my background. And my background doesn't show it, but it's snowing right now here in Seattle. I've got about 1.5 or 2 inches outside my window, which is weird for Seattle. So bear with me. If I get startled because a tree drops a clump of snow and it distracts me, that'll be why. But let's dive in. It is Scripting Fridays, and I don't have my slide deck open. How weird is that? There it is. All right. So again, my name's Ed Laine. If you're new here, I'm in my 39th year. So yeah, I started when I was 2. No, I'm kidding. I started in 1987, and I've sold over 3,000 homes. I've also closed over 5,000 mortgages. So I have a breadth of experience that's pretty broad. Also, I've had a passion for knowing what to say in the right circumstances to help you get the outcome that you want. And that's why I teach this class, because after all this time, I can pretty much pull a string and say what I need to say to help somebody reach a good decision that helps them for sure, but it also wins me business. So today we're going to focus on sellers, and we're going to focus on sifting and sorting sellers, because it doesn't benefit you to take a listing from an unmotivated seller, right? To have an overpriced seller that languishes on the market is a waste of time and money and injures your profile and your resume. So we want to get better at the front end, evaluating and using the seller commitment scale as sort of your measure. So that's what we're going to be covering today. So what are the main reasons why listings fail? Well, sellers are just dipping their toes in the market, right? I often say to people, I'm not talking about you, because I don't want to offend them, but I say, I'm not talking about you, but one of the least sophisticated negotiating tactics for sellers is to start high so that they, quote, have room to come down. And what they don't realize is by starting high, they're shrinking the buyer pool. They're eliminating the audience pretty dramatically. In fact, in my listing presentation, if you guys go back into the Agent Collective website, you'll see that there's a series of listing presentations done by 5 or 6 of us. And I was one of the 5. And in my slide deck, which you can download, there's a screen that says, if you price your home just 10% above the market value, the audience shrinks by 50%. And that's dramatic, right? So that's one of the biggest reasons things don't sell, right? Sellers think, oh, I'm going to price a little high so I have room to come down. Or they just flat believe their house is worth more. Like, you've all seen it where a seller says, yeah, I know my neighbor sold for X, but my neighbor didn't live in my house. I did. And my house is worth more because of that. It's such a phantom argument, but they took better care and they had more passion and blah, 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 blah. A lack of motivation is definitely a reason a listing fails. And you, the listing broker, skipping the step that we're going to cover today. I see a couple things in the chat. Let me make sure they're not relevant. Oh, thank you, John. John put the link to the listing presentations in the chat. So grab that, save it to your computer somewhere, and you can go back to it later and take a look, and feel free to R&D it, right? Rip off and deploy. I am an open book when it comes to sharing stuff that works. So what is the cost of an uncommitted seller? Well, like we just touched on, you're going to put a house on the market for more money than it's worth. That's a problem, right? You're going to end up doing price reductions later which only stretches out the time on the market. You're going to have stale listings. You're going to have wasted money, and it's going to damage your reputation. I'm actually going to stop my share so you can see me and I can see you. I'll use my hands when I'm talking about this to a seller because I want to visually explain to them how if we start too high, the offers start coming in lower, right? And you say no to those because they're too low. And now you're 30 days on the market, so we have to drop our price. And guess what? Those offers drop too. And it's only until you lower the price enough to intersect that line that you'll trigger a sale. So it's hard to do it in a little Zoom window, but you could see if you're in the living room or at the kitchen table with somebody, you can really get dramatic and go, it's only if you go way down here that you're going to finally trigger a sale. And that will scare them in a good way, right? That kind of scares them back into your arms of, okay, now I'm listening. Tell me what I should do, right? And your credibility begins to rise. So that visual aid has helped me a ton. Let me go back into this. All right. So what's a good question that you can ask that changes everything? It's really pretty simple, right? When you're talking to somebody, ask them to rate their commitment on a scale of 1 to 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to selling your home if we can get the price you want? The key part of that sentence is if we can get the price that you want, because you want to remove the fear of what if we get a low ball offer and then we can pivot and not move or whatever. Just say, if we get the price that you want on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you? And then you can follow it up with, well, what would make that a couple numbers higher, right? So here's the commitment scale that we're talking about today. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 through 4, they're not a real seller, right? They're just curious. They have no real motivation or urgency and will overprice the home significantly. And we've all had that, right? So what do you say when somebody's a 1 through 4? 3 words. Why not stay? Why not stay? I would rather disappoint you today than disappoint you 190 days from now or 120 days from now. Pick a number that's big and long and way into the future, because that will scare them into thinking, why are we selling? Right? This really helps plug them back into their emotional why, right? Everybody has an emotional why. And if they don't, they're going to hover down here at the bottom and never sell. If they don't have a reason to sell, there isn't a motivation. They're just dipping their toes in the market or in the water, right? If they're a 5 or a 6, well, now they're just testing the market, right? They're saying, well, if I get my price, I'll sell, and I'm willing to list, but I'm not willing to negotiate. Here's another dialogue that works, especially in this sort of, I would call it tepid, like kind of motivated, not very motivated. The market doesn't care what you want for your house. And they look at me like, what are you saying? The definition of market value is what a buyer is willing to pay and what a seller is willing to accept. That's it. So if you say I want $1 million for my house, it ain't worth $1 million unless we can find a buyer that's willing to pay $1 million. So that's what I mean when I say the market doesn't really care what you want for your house. You'll have conversations related to that where a seller says, but I owe $761,000. The market doesn't care what you owe. You'll have a conversation where the seller says, but I paid $760 for it. I want to at least get, the market doesn't care what you paid for it, right? There's a bunch of variations of it, but the core root of this is the market does not care what your motivation is. doesn't care what you paid for it, what you owe against it, nothing. Buyers will look at comps and decide what they're willing to pay for your house, right? So this is sort of a tipping point, right? In this 10-point scale, you're either going to drive people up the scale or you're going to drive them down the scale. And the real message I want to share with all of you is that's okay, right? I would much rather get to the bottom line on day one and realize maybe now is not the time and stay in touch, right? You know, the other added benefit of this dialogue is the market delivers bad news. Ed never delivers bad news. It's always the market, right? Think of the context once you're on the market. You know, a dialogue I use all the time is the most highly trafficked window of time in any listing is the first 2 weeks, right? We don't want to be overpriced in the first 2 weeks. That's a waste. And if we price it right and there's no traffic, that's the market giving us feedback, right? The market is telling us. In fact, there's an axiom. This is how I would talk to you if you were my seller. There's an axiom in this industry, and it sounds like this: 30 days on the market or 20 showings without an offer is the market telling you that you're overpriced. So let's keep an eye on that, right? Now, I have to add a qualifier because in the last 2 years, I haven't said that axiom very often at all, because what I've been preaching for the last 2 years is patience, right? Think about it. In 2024 and in 2025, we were in a seller's market by definition, but it was behaving like a buyer's market, which means shortage of inventory, but yet buyers were very timid and slow to move because of higher interest rates. I mean, war in Iran. Remember when we bombed the nuclear thing in August of last year? We weren't at war with them like we are now, but that caused buyers to go, "Oh, crap, what should I do?" There's all kinds of reasons for them to behave that way. Even though we're in a seller's market, it's behaving like a buyer's market. Well, if you had a listing in the last 2 years, you had to preach patience. So I wouldn't use that axiom of saying, "Oh, we're 30 days on the market, time for a price reduction," right? But that axiom is true in a normal market. So anyway, now back to the scale. If you're a 7 or an 8, that means you're motivated to sell, but you're hesitant, right? You're worried. A lot of people believe, how many of you on this call have ever heard somebody say, "If I get an offer that has my list price in it, I have to accept it"? I don't know where that came, right? And Jeanette, you've heard that. I've heard that multiple times. It's BS. The seller is not in a position where they have to do anything. You could give me a gold-plated offer with no contingencies. We can still refuse it. So that belief is present in a lot of consumers that just haven't had a conversation with you or I. And that's why they come to the table going, "I'm a little afraid to put a sign in my yard because I might be in a position where I have to do something." No, you don't have to do anything. But let's go back to the motivation, right? If somebody says that to me, that is evidence of a lack of motivation, right? So what I'll do is I'll take their attention back to their emotional why. Let's set aside the fear just for a second. Why are we even talking about this now anyway? Oh, well, my daughter's getting married and moving to California. We want to be near her when she has children, or whatever it is, right? I made that up, obviously, but everybody has an emotional why. And if they don't, they shouldn't sell. So tap them back into their emotional why and help allay their concerns and their fears. One way you can do that is by using your statistics. My average listing sells for 101.4%. That means we get a little bit more than the asking price on average. Check your stats. And it doesn't matter if your stats are at 99 or 98 or 104 or 103, whatever they are. That is a universe of data that gives comfort to the seller, right? My average listing takes this long to sell, or on average, it sells this much. Another thing that's really helpful in these conversations is if you know your average, how does that compare to your MLS's average? That's a really powerful sentence, right? My house sells on average 60% faster than the MLS, than my peers in the MLS. What does that mean to a seller? They better hire me, right? If they want to win, hire me. All right. If they're a 9 and a 10, they're ready, right? They're ready to sign. They understand market value and have a clear timeline. A lot of times they'll have a deadline. We need to be in Florida by this date or before the school year starts or whatever, right? Those are great clients. Debbie said, I often hear, I don't want to leave any money on the table. Oh, I don't want you to leave any money on the table either, right? Like, think about that just for a second, Debbie. What the hell does that mean? Right? They're saying, I don't want to sell it for less when I could have sold it for more, right?
Well, then my smart aleck self is like, well, where's the money on the table that you think you're going to lose? I don't see any on the table, meaning there's no offer. So why do you think you're going to lose something that you don't even have yet?
Yeah.
But I don't say that because it is kind of a smart aleck kind of thing to say.
Well, and tell me this, Debbie, I have that conversation more often if I'm asking for price reductions. Like, it's not usually at the front end because we've done a full CMA process. And you guys, if you haven't seen my video on the color picture CMA tour, watch that video because that's one of the best tools for retraining the brain of the seller. But then when it doesn't work because the market shifts or whatever, now I'm having a conversation about a price reduction. That's when they go, I don't want to leave any money on the table. I'm doing a price reduction right now on one where I recommended a $25,000 price reduction. And she replied with, do we have to? Can we do like half of that? The answer is, it's your asset. Of course we can, right? And we're in a point in a market where there isn't any argument for me to make, which would be like, no, the data says we should do the full 25. It's not. It's just elongated days on market. So we can do half of it and see how it goes. So that's all I do is I sort of pre-sell. Sure, let's do what you're suggesting and watch it for 2 or 3 weeks. And if traffic doesn't improve, that means we're still too high, and we'll do the rest of the 25,000. And I know, Rick's on my team, so he knows that I'm abandoning my price bracketing strategy in this example. But in the end, it's the asset of the seller. It's their decision, right? You're going to give advice and coaching, and they're going to follow your advice and coaching because they trust you. But at the end of the day, it's theirs, and they get to make the call, right? So let me go back into the share. How are we doing on time? I think we're good. All right. And then the last pro tip is most of your listing appointments are going to be with sellers in that mid-range, and your job is to move them up. Help them see a path to where they're trying to go. I often use like the lily pad analogy. It's a little scary to think I'm jumping from one lily pad to the next if I don't even know where that pad is, right? Well, let's go find it. So how do you turn an 8 into a 10? Ask them. What do you feel would need to happen for that number to become a 10? And see what they say, because that'll be revealing, right? It'll tell you if they have just an emotional attachment to trying to get $1 million for their house that's only worth 900 or whatever, right? It'll reveal timeline pressures. It'll reveal the next home contingency if they have a fear, right? In fact, next week, I'm going to make a note so I don't forget. Next week, we're going to talk about home sale contingencies because there's a great dialogue I use to help people visualize it and help get them off the sideline. Would that be helpful to you guys? All right. So you want to dig in and really get their motivation, right? And the questions you can ask that will reveal that are, well, what happens if the home doesn't sell? We're going to miss this job opportunity. We're going to miss this connection with our daughter having babies or whatever, like whatever their why is, that's going to get sort of brought to the forefront. Where would you move to next? Well, we want to downsize. We want to upsize. We want to go to California. We want to, move to Fife. It doesn't matter. For those of you in another state, Fife is a little crappy town here in the Puget Sound. It was meant to be a joke, but it only resonated with Rick, I think. When ideally would you like to be there? Help people visualize the outcome. What's it going to look like and what's it going to feel like when you're sitting on your deck down in Florida or down in wherever or in Fife, right? What would make this move successful for you? If you watch that listing presentation training, we ask 3 questions at the very beginning. What are your top 3 priorities? What are your top 3 to-dos? And what are the top 3 things that you would like to see from the real estate community? So watch that video and you'll hear me explain what we're getting at with those questions, but it's meant to help you tailor your presentation. So how does this conversation sound a lot or often? On a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to selling? I'm probably an 8. What would need to happen to make that a 10? We'd need to know we can actually buy our next home. That's the perfect clue, right? I can solve that. Perfect. Let's solve that together. Sometimes I'll say something like this. If you're truly nervous about that next house, why don't we go looking for that first before we even start getting your house ready for sale? Because if we can determine that what you're looking for is easier to find than you think, that'll give you comfort in selling. And on the other end of it, if we find it's a unicorn, then we should find it first, right? If it's going to be hard to find. And we'll do a deep dive on that topic next week with this contingency conversation. But does that make sense? When you can see that their fear is literally paralyzing them, they won't take action because they're so fearful. Hey, let's take the pressure off. Like I'm never applying pressure, but if that doesn't mean they're not feeling it, right? So hey, let's put the brakes on just long enough to go out and look at some houses. And let's figure out how hard it's going to be to find that perfect next house. And that is so comforting to folks, right? Because they're like, yeah, every other agent we've talked to just wanted to hurry up and put a sign in the yard and we don't know where we're going. Then let's put the brakes on the listing and see how hard it is to find what you want. And I frame it just like that. I want them to know if we figure out it's easy to find, great, then we're full steam ahead. If we find it's a unicorn, and I'll use the word unicorn, no problem. Let's find that unicorn, right? And we'll get into next week how there can be some disappointment when you're writing contingent offers, right? We're all aware of that. So we want to sort of facilitate that. And absolutely, Allison, this is all getting easier because of bridge loans, right? Or one of our lenders in the area calls it the rich uncle loan. So we'll dig into that next week. All right. I think I'm getting close to the end here. Biggest mistakes agents make. They ignore the lack of motivation or low commitment, right? Rushing into the listing presentation, starting the pitch before fully understanding the seller's needs and timelines. That's why we ask these questions at the beginning. Arguing. Don't debate, right? That's the beauty of the color picture CMA. It literally retrains their brain without you having to do it. It's all falls in line with that comment I made earlier, which is Ed never delivers bad news. It's the market, right? Or you weren't paying attention enough to notice their actual motivation. You focus on the what instead of the why. So don't make these mistakes, because that will put you in a position where you're representing an unmotivated seller, or you're pricing it wrong, or you're realizing that they are apathetic. Like, apathy is the worst thing in almost any environment in life. If your kids are apathetic, that's a problem. If you're a coach, if your players are apathetic, that's a problem, right? So what do top producers do? They qualify before listing. They identify motivation early. They solve concerns before marketing, and they protect their time. Time is the one resource that we all don't have unlimited amounts of, right? So you want to be efficient and respectful, but also set expectations. The easiest way to protect your time is, I'm going to come by and see you. I only need 15 minutes. I want to address a couple quick things. That keeps it from being a 2-hour meeting, right? So let's practice a little bit. And you can do this in role play. Pick somebody on your team and say, hey, I want to role play with you so that I can flush out motivation or lack of motivation. So the seller says, I'd say I'm probably a 7 right now, which means they want to sell, but something's blocking them or they're afraid. Your goal is to identify what is blocking them. Don't accept 7 as an answer. Dig deeper to find out exactly what needs to be solved and get them to a 10 so you can list with confidence. What do you guys think is the key script to use when that seller says, I'd say we're probably a 7 right now? Anyone want to come off mute?
When he said what would take you to get to a 10?
Exactly, right? What specific thing would need to happen for that number to become a 10? And you'll get answers like, well, if you told me with confidence I could get $1 million for my $900,000 house, I'm not going to tell him that. I can't tell him that, right? I'm never going to lie, but I'm going to use tools to educate them. But if they say it's a 7 because we don't know where we're going to land, or it's a 7 because my kid still needs to graduate from high school in 2 months, or because, we just have to get to the bottom of the because, right? The strength of your listing pipeline is determined by the strength of your qualifying conversations. You have to be confident enough to say, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10, and how can we get that higher? Is there anybody that is uncomfortable with that dialogue? Is anyone using it now? I use that dialogue with recruiting. I run a large team and I'm always trying to grow it. I use that dialogue with buyers, and I use that dialogue with sellers. I'll even use it on a specific house. Like, I went through our buyer presentation on this show previously, and one of the things I said was, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think of this house? A 1 being, why the hell do you bring me here? And a 10 being, cancel the rest of the appointments. I want to buy it. And they'll say it's a 6 or a 7 or whatever. And they'll say, what would make it a 10? It doesn't have this, or the price is too high. If the price is too high, then I pivot to, well, you don't get what you don't ask for. Let's write an offer and see if we can get them to come down, right? Just depends on how long it's been on the market and all the usual levers that you guys all know how to pull. So I'll end with the plug for whatwouldEdsay.com. It's a custom GPT on ChatGPT. So if you're ever wondering what Ed would say between Fridays, go there and type it in there. I know Allison has done it a number of times. Others of you have done it as well. It's a great resource to give you some fresh ideas on things you might say, like objection handlers to discounting or motivation for buyers to get off the sideline or whatever. So with that, we're at the bottom of the hour, but I always try and reserve a couple minutes for Q&A. So does anyone have a scenario that they're dealing with right now? You can share it and plug it into the real Ed. And what would Ed say? And Jeanette, you went off mute and then back on mute.
I had a question about totally off topic because I'm in fast cap and just kind of wondering maybe for future talks if you would like talk what you think about having 5 pillars and then like what a top producer's your schedule looks like and what to be a top producer you would focus on. That's just what came to mind.
I love that. Do the rest of you think that would be beneficial? Okay. Yeah, I can put that together. I'll still do the contingency talk next week, but we'll do that conversation the following week. Would that be all right? Okay. Yeah. It's funny. I have a 12-week training program, and Jeanette, that the average person has 3 deals in escrow by the end of it. And I had an agent on my team who was a Army sniper. So he was used to structure, and real estate doesn't really have that, right? I mean, I teach time blocking and I try and infuse structure into people's daily lives. But he came to me, this is maybe 10 years ago, in December. He goes, Ed, I'm in trouble. If I don't start selling houses in the next 60 days, I'm going to lose my own house. And I said, have you finished the launching pad? He said, yep. How many deals none? Why? Well, I did everything, but not all the way. And I just get distracted. Like, I didn't judge or anything. I just wanted to hear him admit that he didn't do it the right way. Right. And I said, well, if I gave you a prescription for what to do every day for 30 days, and then on day 31, it'll say repeat, would that help you? And he goes, absolutely. Because of my military background, that's what I need. So I created that, and I give that to everybody when they graduate from my launching pad training so that they know how to attack the 3 channels: lead generation, sphere of influence, farming, and what to do on each of those topics for the rest. So
What do we get launching pads?
I can share launching pad with you. Send me an email. Okay. So here's the situation. I have launching pad marketing online for $6,000 for people that are not with EXP in order to get them to join EXP. But I can give it to you for free because are you with EXP?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just give it to you and you can go through it. And actually I do a live version of it twice a year. And that starts Monday. So send me an email and I'll send you the info. And it's not like when I say the live version, you still watch the 2 videos every week, but once a week we will huddle together and do it over Zoom. I don't know, what state are you in, Jeanette?
California.
Oh yeah. So you could log in 4:00 Pacific time on Mondays, and I'll send it to both of you. In fact, let me make sure I copy Ann Jeanette's email. So we meet for an hour once a week, really just to make sure that nobody's getting stuck. So we'll cover the previous week. Did anyone get stuck in the homework? No? Okay, good. Then let me introduce the coming week. Here's what you should look out for, pay attention to, make sure you complete. And it ends up keeping people up to date on it, because that's the biggest problem with any training is people don't finish them, right? They start
Right.
busy. Like that's the goal, but you still should finish it. And so we do that in the spring and in the fall just to keep people moving along. And the other thing that comes out of it is people that are doing it together can also start to do role playing, because we do scripting in that class as well. And you're sitting in a room like here in Seattle, I have a Regis office that we'll be meeting at. There'll be 10 or 12 people in the room. There will be 10 more online. And you could say, hey, Allison, would you like to do role playing with me? Because I want to get better at whatever script we're focused on. And Allison's going to say yes, because she wants to as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Awesome. Thank
I'll-
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
I'll send this.
No, Jesse, my True Above sponsors left EXP, so I'm an orphan. So I just
Shoot. I'll adopt you if you want.
Yeah.
What part of California are you in?
Northern California. I'm like 2 or 3 under Jesse.
You know, I grew up in Northern California. What part are you in?
Vacaville.
Oh, okay. I
And
grew up.
I have 2 sons in Seattle, and I'll be out there probably in a week or so. So maybe I'll stop by and say hi.
You can come to the launching pad training live. That would be
It
great.
would be cool.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you so much.
I'm being genuine when I say you can certainly merge with my team and I can plug you into the support. I'm sure you know this already, but EXP is such a selfless and transparent organization, and I love it because I'm built the same way. So I have probably 10 or 12 people in my org that I don't get any rev share from, but they get coaching and support every day from me. So
I would really love that. Me and Debbie have been blessed to partner with Debbie on several things, and we kind of run together on things. But yes, I would love more mentoring.
all right, I will send you this. That actually, you raise a good point. Have you closed 3 deals in the last 12 months?
Yes.
Oh, good. So I can mentor you, but I don't need to be your official mentor.
No, I just need just last week I went from working a full-time job in real estate, a part-time, saved enough money, paid off enough stuff to where as of last week I'm full-time real estate and saved enough money for like 4 months. I saved up enough money for 4 months of to pay myself for the next 4 months. So I need to get some deals coming. I just closed Monday. I just closed on Monday. So
Well, and I'll tell you the best recipe is my launching pad 12-week training followed by fast cap, because
Okay.
you'll get the skills through my training, and then you'll get the accountability with fast cap.
I'm in fast cap right now.
If you're in it right now, be ready to do it again after you complete mine, just because
Okay.
you'll actually succeed more, faster, better, especially now that you're full time. That's what I always say to people that are looking to get into the business. The majority of folks try real estate part-time to start, and a lot of firms won't accept them. And all I say is, we'll accept you whatever you're able to do. Just know that you aren't going to succeed as quickly because you're not able to commit as much time. That's it. So
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, cool. I'm excited. I'll send both of you that information about the training. You're more than welcome. I'll also add you to the list that I just send out a weekly update on the training, so you'll get that. And then, Anjanette, I'll also send you a separate email about all the resources that we do, and you're welcome to start plugging into it if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, I've run a little long. Hopefully it was worth it. Great to see you all, and I hope you have an awesome day and stay out of the snow. You don't have snow in Vacaville right now, do you? Yeah, you can have some of mine. All right, ladies, have a great day.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate you.
You bet. Bye.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.